Hello and welcome to the Milan Talk podcast. I'm your host, Samit Paul, and unfortunately, we're looking back at a 2-0 defeat to Inter on Saturday night. Not the result, and certainly not the performance we were after. Really poor in the first half to begin with, didn't trouble them at all, failed to create serious opportunities, did improve as the half went on, but ultimately I don't remember Handanovic making a save of note. We looked shaky at the back, everybody was slightly nervous and anxious on the ball. Rodriguez's back pass nearly put us in a world of trouble. There was pockets of spaces out wide and in and around the midfield throughout the game. I don't know whether you want to point the finger at the tactics from Giampaolo in that regard or the players simply being dragged out of position and not keeping their discipline in the game. But either way, Inter looked dangerous a lot of the time. 2 goals, very unfortunate with the first with the deflection, but then a good goal for the second. Just really disappointing in short. I don't want to be too harsh and too critical, but you're looking for a big performance from your team in a derby. I'm not saying that it's always going to be the quality there and you're going to play free-flowing football all the time, but the grit, the determination, the ability to take the game by the scruff of the neck and get involved in a scrap, I just don't feel as that any of those attributes and characteristics were there in our performance. And for me, that's why I was just really, really disappointed with the way that we played. It's becoming a balancing act now between having patience with Giampaolo and questioning whether or not his methods, ideas and style of play are going to work. Still early in the season, we're only 4 games in. Yes, we've won 2 and lost 2 and we've only scored 2 goals in those 4 games. But I think it's still too early pointing the finger at him and putting the spotlight on him and suggesting that he's in trouble already. The thing that I think will make a big difference now and potentially save him from coming under more intense criticism as the weeks go on is his personnel and his starting 11s. I think there's a lot of problems with the starting 11 that he's picking at the moment. For me personally, Theo Hernandez, Ismael Benacer, Ante Rebic, Rafael Leao, Bonaventura and Paqueta all need to be involved in some shape or form in this starting 11 from now on. Rodriguez for me isn't doing the job at left back. Biglia is not doing the job in midfield, in the heart of the midfield, and he's got the experience, the composure, the calmness, but he has not got the quality on and off the ball and the energy that Benacer can bring to the table, especially in a game like the derby where it's going to be frantic, it's going to be at a high tempo, high pace. We needed someone like Benacer in the heart of the team, and I think that was a really, really big mistake from Giampaolo. Positive signs from Leao. Rebic came on, and I just like his intent and the way that he plays with some intensity to really pressurise the defence and the opposition. I think Paqueta offers a little bit more flair and creativity ahead of Çalhanoğlu and Suso. Those two, yes, they're still key. They've got big roles to play for us, but consistently they continue to let us down in terms of unlocking defences and dictating a game and taking control of a game. Talented players, Suso more so because he's been more decisive for us over the years, but we're constantly coming up with the same struggles in games where we're struggling to break teams down. I just feel as though for a game or two, perhaps, we need to freshen things up, add a bit more pace, inject some pace, a bit more movement, a different dynamic to our attack, play the likes of Bonaventura and Paqueta to add the creativity, give Piontek some support to stretch defences and give him space to exploit, rather than just being in a congested part of the pitch where there's a three-man back line and he struggles to get any sort of service and space to create any opportunities for himself. So for me, I think Giampaolo for now, he's coming under a little bit of criticism, but I think it's more to do with getting the starting 11 right, bringing in the summer signings, freshening things up, and I do believe that things will improve. But on the basis of this performance, really bitterly disappointed. Obviously, it always hurts more when it's a derby. You do want to beat your rivals, and especially the way that we've started the season, they've started the season, it would have been a big result to get a win, but it wasn't to be, and you can only hope now that things start to change and Giampaolo starts freshening things up a little bit. Just moving on to your post-match comments after the game. Andreas Klang, at Klang Andreas. I agree 100%, just want to know how you want to play the midfield and strikers. He says Paqueta, Benacer and Jack in the midfield 3 with Rebic and Leao behind Piontek. He says, so no Suso, which I'm fine with, and no Kessie. For me, I'd still leave Kessie in. I've been very critical of Kessie in terms of what he doesn't offer in the final third in his end product, but I still believe that his energy and tenacity off the ball and his defensive work is absolutely crucial to providing a really important balance to our midfield. So I'd leave Kessie in. I'd probably start with Paqueta and Benacer next to him. Bonaventura floating in and out of the team, and then give Rebic and Leao a chance to play behind Piontek on the flanks, get back to a more traditional 4-3-3 perhaps, and actually have pace and movement out wide to really test the backlines of the opposition now. I think we've got so many technical players with Suso and Çalhanoğlu trying to pull the strings, and it's just not working all the time. So if he doesn't want to make those wholesale changes, then at least bring in Leao on the left and give him more of a chance, or Rebic a chance, and see if he can add a balance to the team where we're offering different dynamics and different looks in the final third. For me, that's how I think we should line up. But if you disagree, if you've got a different opinion, different lineup, leave your comments below and let me know. At MD Coop 3, agreed with my last point on the players that should come in. So Theo, Benacer, Rebic, Leao, Jack, Paqueta. Marvin Diaz, at Marvin Diaz 619. God, I hate this manager. Biglia was dead since the 40th minute. Rodriguez gets a lot of criticism, but Conte for me was far worse. Suso might have screwed up on that chance, but he made something out of nothing, so it's okay. Plus Leao had a chance to pass it to Suso, but crossed it instead. And don't get me started on Piontek. Again, so opinions are going to differ. Everybody's going to look at different players in a different way. For me, I've been critical of Suso, but Marvin makes a good point as well, that he still makes things happen. And Leao was guilty of messing up a chance himself as well. Biglia, 100% agree with you. I do not understand the decision not to start Benacer in this game. And Conte did not have a good game at all. He was really, really poor, really, really rusty. Hopefully it's just, again, like I said, a rusty sort of first performance back, having spent so much time out of the team. But on the basis of that, he's going to struggle to keep his place in the lineup ahead of Calabria. And he's back from suspension next week. So we'll see if that change is made straight away. At 4, Cusco, it's the coach's fault for not playing his best players and relying on Suso. Again, I agree with that. There's so many changes, so much talent and quality on that bench on Saturday. It was just shocking to see him not make the more changes and bring those new signings in. And for me, if he doesn't change things, doesn't bring them in now, we are going to continue to struggle. Torino away on Thursday is not an easy game. And I feel as though if we play the same lineup that played against Inter, we'll come across the same problems in terms of trying to break them down and not finding a way through. So Giampaolo's risk, his decision, whether or not he wants to keep faith in the players that he's been showing faith in so far. Another point I made after the game was that you can talk about the coach, you can talk about the directors, but for me, I just don't see us going anywhere if the likes of Rodriguez, Biglia, Çalhanoğlu, Suso continue to start games. I think this is the first time in a long time that we've got depth and alternative options, and for me, it's about time now that Giampaolo uses them and makes these changes to see if they have a desired effect. If they don't, go back to what we know and try again and tweak things to maybe try and see if there are different ways of getting around it. But for me, the time has come now to really try and change a few things up and give it a different look. Borriolo Dami at Borricanes, ridiculous. There must be something we don't see in training because it blows my mind. It seems he's fielding his friends rather than who's better. Doesn't make any sense, and I hope he's gone after this. We could have got a point again from this game the way Inter played. Again, I'm going to stop short of saying that I want Giampaolo gone already, but I completely echo Borri's sentiments and criticisms. Very difficult to understand where the selections come into play. I just don't get how you can choose Biglia over Benacer in this particular game, and I'd imagine that most of us would have predicted how Biglia would have fared, and it went exactly the way that I thought it would. So it's worrying to an extent that Giampaolo didn't see this before the game. Other options, you could probably give him a bit of leeway and say that Rodriguez and Hernandez not fully fit yet, so probably not ready to start, but I hope that he's ready to start on Thursday. If Rodriguez is back in the lineup on Thursday against Torino, then there is a serious issue. And then perhaps, looking at other players, Rebic hasn't had a long time to settle in with the players that he's joined up with the new squad. So maybe that's an excuse to use for him as well. But time and patience for those excuses are running out, and those changes do need to be made sooner rather than later. Nick at Nick's Feed 75. I don't think Ricardo Rodriguez sees the field again except Coppa Italia matches. Biglia has no influence. Suso has flashes but so inconsistent. Cannot understand why Benacer is still on the bench, and when does Caldara get healthy? Again, similarly, echo those points, completely agree with them on Rodriguez and Biglia. Suso's inconsistency is his major problem. Yes, you can back him and say that he does make things happen. He is a creative spark most of the time, and we do need him because he is a very influential player when he's on form and when it's his day. but the inconsistency has always been my biggest criticism, and that is still a problem that looms large over him. So if he can fix that, great. No criticisms, no moans about Suso, but the inconsistency continues to be a problem. As far as Caldara is concerned, he should be back next month as far as I'm aware, but then knowing Giampaolo and the basis of what we've seen so far this season, you probably have to add another month on top of that before he thinks he's ready to play football, so we'll have to wait and see until how that goes. Milan main man, there are better players warming the bench. It's all down to the coach at this point. Again, can't disagree and argue with that, because there certainly are great options on the bench, let's say that should be getting more of a look in, and hopefully we do see them get more of a chance moving forward. Official Houdan, it's now open and clear for Giampaolo to start the new players. They have all that it takes. Biglia, Benacer, Ricardo Rodriguez, Theo, Musacchio, Duarte and Suso Castillejo. Leao and Rebic should play more. Kessie needed for his energy, but Bonaventura is needed. Again, it's the general consensus. We're all saying the same thing, the same players to come in, particularly Benacer, Theo, Leao, Rebic and Bonaventura. We're all saying the same names. There's nothing more that we can say, really. It depends now on what Giampaolo wants to do and whether he's going to consider those changes or not. Again, at MD Coop 3, play the new players. If that fails, run the manager. So, same thing again, new players have to come in. Moz at Mr. GL added, how much do you attribute our rocky start to the players versus Giampaolo's uncertainty with his own philosophy and tactics? Are you still Team Hakan? In all seriousness, he is no longer worthy of a starting berth. I feel like Giampaolo wants to play it safe by choosing Rodriguez, Biglia and Hakan. But they are clearly not the future of the club, and I'd rather take my lumps with young, higher upside players than steady, average ones. Moz, as always, on the money, straight hit the nail on the head with your points. In terms of the rocky start and whether it's to do with Giampaolo's uncertainty and philosophy and tactics, all the players. Combination of both is the easy answer. Players, for me, haven't performed well enough, but then is that to do with the tactical tweaks, the decisions that Giampaolo has made so far this season, the way that he kind of abandoned his initial thoughts after the defeat to Udinese? If you look at the game last night, for example, admittedly, I think the players lost their shape and organisation after the first goal went in. Giampaolo picked it up in his post-match interview and noted how there was so much space out wide and in around midfield as we lost our shape. I don't think the players are settled. They're still playing a little bit with nerves, with anxiety, especially when they're on the ball. Sometimes they're not sure whether to press or not to press. So I think there are things that need to be ironed out still in terms of Giampaolo's tactics and what he wants from this team. But that said, these players are better than what they're showing so far, in my opinion. And especially the ones that are on the bench. They need to be more involved. And I think that's what's so baffling about his decisions so far. I feel as if the players that are sat on the bench are better suited to his style of playing, what he wants to see from this team. You're talking about a high-tempo team, a team that presses high up the pitch and wins the ball back, attacks with intent, plays nice technical football. Players like Benacer, Theo Hernandez, Rebic, Leao, these guys all offer what he wants. So for me, I just find it a little bit baffling how they've not played more. So for me, as soon as those changes are made, I do feel as though we will see some improvements. At Samir Mohammed 72, sack Giampaolo, get Allegri or Gattuso. I think Samir said that with a cheeky smile on his face, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be a few more asking for the same relatively soon. Conte, Biglia had a good game. I'm going to have to disagree with you on that one, Samir. I don't agree with either of those. I think they both were poor. Conte looked very rusty. Biglia just wasn't at it for me, just not good enough. But you do add Leao, Benacer and Theo must start all games, which I definitely agree with, and that has to happen. Didn't see any of Giampaolo's tactics playing worse than when we were under Gattuso. If we don't start winning against the smaller sides, we're done for, but Donnarumma was a beast. 100% agree with those points as well. And yeah, the tactics aren't coming through at the moment. We saw some signs in pre-season that look quite positive, but so far this season, we just look the same as what we did last season without that sort of grit in the middle of the pitch, which is a big concern. So we'll have to see how that continues. MD Coop 3 adds that Calhanoglu should probably sit a couple of matches and see what happens, which I completely agree with, especially with the players that are sitting on the bench waiting for an opportunity. Ahmad at A_Y_S. It would have been fine if Conte made mistakes while trying. The first goal's free kick, but most of the time he didn't try to defend, just walking aimlessly and not putting any real effort in closing people down or thinking about his positioning. yeah, really poor performance from Conte, really disappointed. I bigged him up before the game and said that this was his big opportunity to stake his claim for a place in the side ahead of Calabria. On the basis of that, I'm pretty sure we're going to see Calabria come straight back into the team next week. MD Coop 3 again adds play the new players, which is another perfect point. There's no doubt about it. Those new players need to come in. TRQ_super rookie. If major changes don't happen in midfield, Milan is going nowhere. We've been saying that for years now. Again, like I said, we do believe we have the players. If you play a midfield three of Paqueta, Benacer and Kessie, I think we're going to see a much better midfield. But again, we're not seeing it yet. Franz G. Samanjuntak says, before the derby, Milan performances were not convincing. After the derby, Giampaolo must realise that he has to change his tactics and choose new players, Leao, Theo, Benacer and Rebic. Again, same names, same points. All of you, for me, are spot on. It's just whether or not Giampaolo is going to agree with us or not. Pedro Pacheres says Giampaolo doesn't seem to have alternative solutions. His system isn't working. Hakan, Biglia, Rodriguez. It's stupid to look for different result than last season with the same players. He is not a coach for Milan. Again, without trying to be repetitive and say the same thing over and over, you guys are picking out the same names that need to be dropped and the players that need to come in and what Giampaolo's doing wrong. You just got to sit back and pray that he actually does make those changes. Cusco says just Giampaolo out, that's it. So he's had enough of Giampaolo already. And at Jordan Cryface 71 also adds Giampaolo out. So yeah, a few of you losing patience with Giampaolo for sure. And the more that this carries on, I think there's going to be plenty of us joining you. Just a quick glance at the Gazzetta dello Sport player ratings before we finish. Donnarumma was given a 6.5 out of 10 as our best player, and you'd have to agree with that. He was solid. Piontek got the worst flop of the match rating with a 5 out of 10, but I always find it harsh with Piontek, whether if he doesn't get the service, yes, he has to do more off the ball and do more if he's not scoring, but if he doesn't get the surface and he's left isolated against the back three, full of quality, by the way, he's always going to struggle. Conte got a 5.5, Musacchio got a 5.5, Romagnoli got 5.5, and Rodriguez got a 5. Conte slightly fortunate not to get downgraded to a 5 as well, but yeah, the back line wasn't solid at all in this game. I just particularly thought we were vulnerable and looked open to be attacked down our left flank all game long. Rodriguez getting caught out in and behind with a space behind him, and also just his lack of intent and forward play just really frustrating as usual. Kessie 5.5, Biglia 5.5, Hakan 5. I'd probably be tempted to drop Biglia down to a 5. I just think he was really, really poor. Didn't give us that foundation in midfield that we needed. So if he was better than Calhanoglu, for me, I don't see it. I think they were both as bad as each other. Suso got a 5 as well, which is about spot on. Just didn't do enough, getting predictable, cutting in on his left foot. Players are reading him. If that doesn't work, then what else does he offer? For me, that 5 out of 10 is probably just about right. Leao gets a 6.5 out of 10. I agree with that because I think he did pretty well. He showed glimpses of his pace, his directness, his confidence to take a man one-on-one down the left flank. For me, I don't think we exploited that enough. Him against Godin, there's only one person that's going to win that race, and I don't think we made the most of that matchup at all. Paqueta got a 5.5. He did okay when he came on. Like I said, I think his link-up play with Hernandez was promising. So if those two start on the left flank together, I think we'll see good things from them. Theo Hernandez, and talking about him, he gets a 6.5 out of 10 because I think he made a massive impact. Even though he was only on the pitch for 20 minutes, I thought he was really, really good. Showed his intent. He was willing to break forward. He had that chance which clipped the post. So for me, has to be on the team sheet, the starting 11 next week. And Rebic didn't get a rating, but for me, he showed the right attitude and approach after he came on to kind of take the game to Inter and get stuck in. Really, that's kind of what you want to see from subs. It's kind of trying to change the game, and that's what we saw from him. So yeah, guys, really disappointing performance, results, not what we wanted from the first derby of the season. Our troubles against Inter continue. Made basic points, as I mentioned earlier. Rodriguez a liability again. I think it was a mistake to start Biglia. Calhanoglu and Suso should be considered for the drop. Leao showed some promise, and I think the likes of Hernandez, Benacer, Paqueta, Rebic and Bonaventura must now get a chance in the starting lineup or with more minutes, because Giampaolo is getting it wrong by sticking with the same players over and over again, and that could very well be his downfall moving forward. So fingers crossed we do get to see those changes sooner rather than later. Guys, that's a wrap for this pod. I want to say thank you to all of you for your comments and your feedback after the game. It's never nice to be talking about a loss, especially to Inter, but it's what makes this podcast for me so good, so enjoyable to make. Reading your comments, getting your reactions. So appreciate that. Please keep them coming in. I'll be back against Torino next Thursday with some thoughts. In the meantime, follow Milan Talk 1 on Twitter and Facebook, and check out the website milantalk.com for daily content, more stuff on there from me in terms of changes and my thoughts on the game. But for now, disappointing result. Dust ourselves down, move on, try and get a win on Thursday. And as always, Forza Milan.